Good morning and welcome to Utopia Farms. Today we're going to talk about wool. So I'm wearing my felt hat, which was made from our own Shetland wool back in the day. Still looking pretty good, I think. And I have on a scarf that was also made from our Shetland wool. It consists of Shetland, llama, and alpaca, all of which were our animals, and it was hand woven by me and hand spun by me. But the days of wool have changed a lot over the course of history, and unfortunately not in a good way. So today we'll talk about what I know about wool, what to look for in your wool, where wool started and where it is now, and what you can do with it, and basically all things wool. So I hope you'll stay with us and have a listen along. Of course, throughout our talks on wool, we're also gonna be doing chores and looking at the sheep. And as I start the day, we're at the ram pen and having a look at them. And I want to add that all our discussions about wool today will be just that. It'll be me talking about what I know about wool, as far as statistics, actual dates, actual values and stuff. That's what Google and Wikipedia are for. I'm just going to tell you like a summary of what I know about wool and the wool industry. And if you want to take it from there, you're more than welcome to do so. Anyway, we're going to head in and do our chores. Okay, we're in the coveralls doing chores. We're feeding bottle babies in one pen. The other pen's crying because their turn's next. And because the rain hasn't started yet and it's dry outside, we left the gate open for this group to start their wanderings around the yard. And some of them have discovered that they can come out and are checking things out. So nowadays, most people are raising sheep for the meat industry. It's all about the lamb meat and growing lambs for market, getting them to grow as fast as they can. And although there are hair sheep, there aren't too many breeds that are hair sheep. Most of them have wool, and so we shear the wool off to keep them healthy. But that wool, although it does get processed, we get extremely small amounts of money for the wool that we send away. I'm not sure exactly what it is right now in Canada, but I think we get around 25 to 30 cents a pound, which helps to pay for the shearers, but it doesn't quite pay for the shearers. So there's no money to be made in wool. If you have a specialty wool breed, such as Shetland sheep, who have a really nice fine colored wool, there's a niche market for that wool for hand spinners and weavers. They will pay premium prices for that wool if you can find the market for it, because the market is small, so you have to look for it. But I had Shetlands, and I would get about $20 a fleece from spinners and weavers. But mind you, I was only selling like 10 fleeces a year. So again, it's more of a hobby industry. It's not a money-making proposition. So when I first got into sheep, I thought I was getting into the meat industry. I thought I'd make some extra money. And that's when I got to meet the lambs and the sheep and found out that they aren't just dumb farm animals, but really nice, friendly animals, almost like dogs. And that's when I decided to get into Shetland sheep, because I thought there's no way I can ever do the meat industry thing. So that's what I did for years and years. I marketed wool, spun wool. I had Shetland sheep, so they were naturally colored. So it wasn't about dyeing the wool. It was about selling natural products. And as a hobby, it was a really nice hobby. I sold breeding stock as well from those sheep. A lot of them, because Shetlands are a small breed, went to pet homes and hobby farms, other spinners and weavers, people who just wanted sheep around their hobby farm to keep the fields trimmed down and stuff like that. And then the males, aside from the breeding stock quality males, they all got neutered, and they also went for pet homes. And I used to breed for special markings and stuff like that. So there's a little niche market for that type of thing, but it is not the wool industry it used to be when sheep were first made into domestic animals and farmed. Okay, today this barn is deafening. This is the weaned ewes, and our replacements are stuck in here somewhere too. But not only did they lose their lambs today, they also aren't getting grain. So they're not happy campers this morning. They can see outside the pails and the lambs running around and everyone else getting fed. They've got plenty of hay, but that's just not good enough for them. So they have to learn the new routine. Okay, so I'm gonna try show you the wool on these sheep. So I got my little Dorset ewe lamb here. She was born in the fall, and if I split her wool open, come here, sweetie. I want to get a close-up of her. Okay, she's not going to show me. Okay, so this is Cammy. She's a yearling ewe. Okay, we're going to split Cammy's wool. If you look very closely on those locks, there's little like crimps, wrinkles. And if that was cut off, we could tell how springy it was, because what you would do is you would take that piece of wool in two hands and kind of pull it tight and release it, and it would make a little sound, a boing, and it tells you the spring on the wool. So I said that I started with Shetlands. I have one Shetland left. She's got to be 17 now. We don't do anything with her now. She's just retired here. She's at the back there. She's that little one. Hi, sweetheart. So this Shetland, she's basically retired here. She's about 17 years old now. She's not a good example of the wool right now, but if we were to catch her and part her wool, she would have kind of tweed colored wool, variations of gray, white, and a beigey brown color. So when you spin that wool up, it's a really nice color. She stayed here. She was the last Shetland born here, and she's never been friendly. I can't catch her, can't pet her, but she's here. She's basically the leader of the flock. Once we let everybody outside, she leads everybody out to pasture and brings them back home again. But yeah, she's an old girl. And that's how we started with wool, because Shetland fleece is really long. I think it gets around 5 inches, and it's really soft and it's really crimpy, and all those things make a fleece easy to process, to work with, and to spin, because when you're spinning it, all those little crimps in the wool help to bind it together. So other colored sheep, for instance, Icelandic or Jacob sheep, which are also wool breeds, they have long staples of wool too, but the crimp in general is farther spaced apart, and usually the farther the spacing on the crimps is, the coarser the wool is. So whereas a Shetland can have fleece fine and soft enough to make a baby's blanket with, a Jacob or an Icelandic is a coarser wool, so you're going to be making things like socks or carpets, things that aren't going to be directly against your skin, or that are going to get a lot of heavy use, like socks. So when people ask which sheep have the best wool, that's like saying which breed of sheep is the best sheep, because the answer would always depend on what you're going to do with the wool. So if you're wanting it to make sweaters and fine clothing, you probably want a breed of sheep that has finer wool, softer to the touch, crimpier wool, like the Shetlands. If you want to be able to dye the wool, you would probably go towards a white breed. That's why the white breed of sheep is the most common, because white wool is easy to dye. So when wool first became popular in history, the reason white sheep were heavily bred for was because you could dye it any color. So your wardrobe could become very bright and vibrant. So white sheep became popular, and white is a dominant gene, and that's why today in the world there are more white sheep than any other colored sheep. If you breed a white sheep to a colored sheep, it will eventually turn your whole flock white over time. Back in the history of sheep, wool was the number one product from the sheep, and meat was seen as the byproduct. So you weren't slaughtering lambs for market. You were breeding for that lamb's wool, which of course baby wool is even finer and softer than an adult fleece would be. But like I said in my sheep shearing video, when you shear a lamb's fleece, and by a lamb's fleece I mean anyone say under 8 months old, because the fleece is shorter because it hasn't had a chance to grow out for a year, what tends to happen when you shear it is it breaks into little handful clumps. It doesn't stay together like a big carpet as it does in an adult sheep. But so the sheep in history would have been grown up for the wool, and wool merchants and sheep breeders were the rich people in society, because wool was like gold. The Catholic Church was heavily invested in sheep's wool, and a lot of the churches and cathedrals in the UK were built using proceeds from the wool industry. And every rich person had, royal and everything, had a flock of sheep. And then As the sheep got older, then is when they would be slaughtered and used for meat. But again, it wouldn't be just meat they were using the sheep for. They used every single part of the sheep. The hooves, the horns, the intestines, they all had a purpose and were utilized in their society. So sheep were a very, very valuable commodity because they, people could survive on sheep. They could be clothed. They could have their blankets made from them. They could insulate their homes with the wool. They could eat them. They could drink their milk. They could make buttons out of their horns. And the list just goes on and on. So they were very valuable. And then the cotton industry got developed, which basically put the sheep industry out because it was cheaper to produce cotton, and that's basically the downfall of sheep wool. And then, of course, the synthetic fibers came along too, which again is cheaper to produce, although we will argue that it's not a sustainable industry like cotton and wool would be, because it's made of a lot of harmful materials. But anyway, so today, like I said, we get pretty well nothing for our wool, and I don't see the future of wool coming back either, because it is more expensive to produce. Farmers are getting less. People don't want to do this kind of labor. You can buy much cheaper cotton products or nylon wool that looks nice, feels nice, it's not scratchy on your skin. Carpets are definitely way out of fashion nowadays. Nobody wants carpets in their homes anymore. So it's a very niche market. And I even predict that several hundred years from now, even the meat industry is probably gonna be pretty diminished as people start to find the cost too expensive, and the ethical issues of eating animals and stuff. All these things are hurting the farming industry and the sheep industry in particular. Now, people asked if you can tell the quality of wool by looking at a sheep like this, and I would say the answer is no. You really need to touch it and to look at the actual staples of wool. That being said, different breeds do have different qualities of wool, and you can read about which sheep produce what kind of quality of wool and what the wool would be used for. Suffolk sheep in general have a coarser fleece. They would be more the rug type wool and the socks, but it is creamy color, so it's easily dyed, and you can do a lot with it. You can dye it. Dorset sheep have a lot finer wool, so you can make more clothing related items out of the Dorset wool. But I'll bring you over to get Arnie to open up our bags of wool, and we'll look at the wool carefully. And one day, if you ever get to a fair or get to a farm where people are shearing their sheep, you should go have a feel. You can feel the difference between a lamb fleece, an adult fleece, and the different breeds. It's really nice. We're in with the boys now. I don't know if any of the boys will let us touch their wool, because these guys have some really nice fleeces on them. Because the Dorsets have long wool, and it's very, very soft. and it's very crimpy. Would someone let us touch your fleece? Hi. Hi. You're very nice. Can we look at your wool? See how it holds the color really well? You can see the little crimps on that wool. That is extremely soft, and that would still be considered lamb fleece. The Suffolk, on the other hand, hey buddy. Let's have a look at him. He's a lamb too, and he actually has really soft fleece too. And the brown at the top is just the dirt, and you see how white and crimpy it is down below at the skin level. This Suffolk fleece is going to grow to be about 2 inches long, and this Dorset fleece is probably going to grow to be about 4 or 5 inches long. And I forgot to show you the full bags of wool we got from shearing those 82 sheep. We got 5 of these bags full, and these bags are going to weigh anywhere from 200 to 250 pounds. So because they're big fleeces, we got quite a lot of wool off of them. Okay, I managed to pull a clump of wool out of those wool bags, and I'll break this even smaller so you can see. Now, each of these little locks have little wrinkles in them. Can you see the little wrinkles? That's the crimp. And the spacing between this fleece here, it's very small. Like the ridges are very small. So it's a very soft fleece. It feels almost like a cotton ball. It's not scratchy at all. This is the end that would have been sheared off. And this would be the outer fleece. And that catches all the dirt and the debris. And you can see that as it gets closer to where the body would be, it's whiter. So if you were to make money on the fleeces, if they had any value, ideally what you do is the whole fleece gets flipped over on the dirty side so that the clean side is sticking up, and you fold it up. That way the clean side doesn't get contaminated with dirt. Although when you send these fleeces to the processors, they all get totally washed and cleaned. For a hand spinner, some people will wash the fleece by hand very carefully so that it doesn't felt, because wool felts very easily and it shrinks very easily if you decide to put heat on it. So you wash it carefully in cold water and get the dirt off, and then you can you comb it into what they call rovings, and then you use that to spin. Other people will leave it what they call in the grease, and that's what I used to prefer to do. In the grease means you don't wash it. Now, if you're not going to wash it and you're going to spin it, you are going to want a relatively clean fleece, and you will comb it out, and that will get little pieces of grit and stuff out, so that it's quite nice. But when they say in the grease, I'm squishing this fleece, and it's a dry fleece. But right now, can you see the glisten on my hand? That's an oil that's in the fleece. So if you're gonna spin in the grease, that oil actually helps to bind the fleece. So when you're spinning it, it's going to twirl around like that into yarn. And as you're feeding it through the spinning wheel, if you have it in the grease, I find it slides much more easily and it helps bind it together. And then once you've spun your yarn, then you wash it. So that's a personal preference thing. Everybody does it differently, but I found it worked better for me that way. Now this grease is also a marketable product. That's lanolin. So if you buy lanolin hand cream, face cream, or whatever, that's where it comes from. So when you're working with fleece, now your hands are nice and moisturized. You can really see the shine on it. And you don't realize how much oil. And that oil also helps when they're out in the field running around. It's a water repellent, so it helps protect the sheep from the elements. What else can I tell you about fleece? I think that's about it, unless anyone has any questions. It's just a really nice product. It's unfortunate that to process it, to send it away to a mill, I used to do it, and I used to have yarns made and rovings made, and I wasn't getting it dyed because I was dealing in natural fibers. But if you had to dye it, that would be an extra cost as well. And the cost is phenomenal. Like, it's really, really expensive. That's why when you buy wool blankets, wool pillows, wool duvets, anything, you're going to pay good money for it. And it's just why wool isn't as viable a product as it used to be, because to feed a sheep and grow a sheep and lamb a sheep and take care of a sheep and then pay a shearer and then send it away to get processed and dyed and then shipped back to you, the cost is astronomical. It really is high priced, and that's why quality woolen goods are expensive. So what used to be a cheap product in historical times, because everybody had them, is now almost considered a luxury product. Like the hand-woven rugs you'd get in Turkey. Those are quality luxury things, and you can see why, because so much goes into the wool from the lamb being born right up to the time the wool is shipped away and sent back to you all finished. So I hope you enjoyed our little wool section. And I guess I'm going to call it a day. And I hope you'll join us again tomorrow for the next episode at Utopia Farms. Bye for now.